Welcome to the DWRDNET Stationery feed with your host, Derek DeWeese. This is a podcast where we talk about all things stationery, be it fountain pens, pencils, typewriters, papers, and more. So sit back and relax and enjoy this week's episode. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 8 of the DWRDNET Stationery feed. Today I get to welcome Dave Dollar of Dave Dollar Custom Pens to the show. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, thanks, Derek. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm really looking forward to this discussion and just telling you a little bit
this will
about
be a great one. As we got to talk in Little Rock and Atlanta, yours is a name I had heard, but now we've actually met each other and had a chance to sit down and talk, have a drink and whatnot in the after hours at Atlanta. So I've been looking forward to this one, especially with you being from not far or currently living not far from where I grew up, adds in that, Texas tie. So, but let's go on and get started here with just kind of the level setting questions like we do. So what got you into the pen and stationery hobby to begin with?
Well, I had been a woodworker my whole life, still make sawdust every once in a while, but I had the opportunity to buy a tremendous amount of equipment and pen kits. I'd never had a lathe before, and I just jumped into it to see if I would like it. And I got it for a steal, so I was immediately hooked. And then it was actually through the influence more of my son on fountain pens, because I wasn't a fountain pen person. Although my wife has used a fountain pen for her art for many years. That's how I kind of got into the artistic craft.
And that seems to be a common theme with other makers I've talked to, or even myself in my beginning journey. You get a good deal on some starting equipment, and then you do it a little bit, and you're like, okay, I'm hooked. And you got to keep making things at that point because it just becomes fun. So you said you weren't really in the fountain pen side, but how long ago was it that you were able to get your equipment and kind of start down the stationary hobby side of the path?
So it was like probably September, October of 2018 when I acquired a mini lathe, 100 pen kits, and over 200 blanks, and associated tools for like $500. It was great.
Wow, that is a good deal.
Now I wore the motor out of the mini lathe by November, so I had to go buy another lathe that first year, but I was hooked. And what was really satisfying to me was I could start to finish create a piece of functional art in an afternoon. And previously I was making jewelry boxes. I was making some pieces of furniture. Sometimes I'd go back and forth, make, a couple of jewelry boxes and then a piece of furniture, not really for sale, but mainly for friends, family, and the like. And this was something that I could do. The return to me, as far as the joy of being able to create something out of, almost nothing, was real attractive. And the kits were primarily rollerball, ballpoint, because that's the kits that I got. But I started adding to them almost immediately, and people were asking for fountain pens, so I started incorporating those. Not writing with them, and so they were scratchy as everything, I'm sure. Maybe people were kind on those first pens that I sold.
Well, and you never know with kits because sometimes it might be great, sometimes it might not. But, it's kind of a gamble. But the good thing is you can normally swap components out on those. So, but now that you've been in this world for a while, have you become a fountain pen user? Or just are you still primarily a maker?
No. I use a fountain pen every day. I've got a number that are inked, some that are probably I should clean them out, but I have 6 or 8 that are inked all the time.
What are some of the ones you have inked now? Are they ones you've made, or other makers' pens, or like production pens, or a little bit of both?
So the only pens that I use of my own are ones that I would never sell to anybody. Because if it's good, I put it up for sale, and if it has some problems, then I keep it in the shop. I'm using it to test something. But I'm a collector of production pens, vintage pens, and maker pens. So, one of my best writers here is from Hello from John Tello. And it's got a fantastic Bach titanium nib on it that was tuned by Richard Bender. back in 22. It's just fantastic. My latest maker pen that I acquired was I picked this up at the California Pen Show. This is from Bart with Zodiac pens. This is a Pisces, and I'm a Pisces, so I've been looking at this for a while. Really glad to have this, and it's inked up for me. And then a pen that I've had inked up continuously since I got it in 22 is this Mont Blanc Star Walker. It's just had one, the blue, I can't remember the name of it, a blue Mont Blanc ink. That's all it's had in it ever. And it's always inked up because it always is ready to go. And then on the vintage side, and I picked this up in California as well, it's my first Schaefer pen for men, Model 4. Also, fantastic writer. I get to float through those, pretty regularly. And then for my traveler, I've got this nice Eversharp Skyline. So
Okay.
so that's just a few of the ones that I have. But I'm a collector of all three. Love the different genres and the stories. A lot of it is the stories that come with it. I know where every one of the production pens that I've got, I know exactly where I bought it, whether it was on a trip somewhere with my wife Judith, or at a pen show, and that's I purposely got that one. Same thing with the maker pens. I know the story on each one of those as well.
No, that's very neat. And you do have a good variety in what you were showing. Now, in terms of those being inked, are you a cartridge, a bottle? Do you stick with the same inks? Like you said, your Mont Blanc's always had, sounds like Mont Blanc Royal Blue, which happens to be the pen I'm using today, is one that I just filmed the video on earlier
Oh,
today
okay.
and have Mont Blanc Royal Blue in it. Um, so very timely. But what are your ink preferences overall?
Well, with cartridges, I'm a real fan of Monteverde, and there's a couple of inks there that I just like always gravitate to: the Caribbean blue and the uh, California teal. I got hooked on greens, and that California teal is just a fantastic green. So I have those in cartridges, but I also have dabbled in a number of other inks. I'm just looking at them right over there on the two shelves. I have enough for those two shelves, and I'm gonna have to get rid of some to or get more shelves. I think it's probably you get more shelves, you probably don't get rid of inks.
Well, you're a woodworker, so it just sounds like you need to make some more shelves, but dust off the original
100%.
woodworking skills and make or like some half shelves, because that's one thing with inks. Like in mine, the I can only stack bottles like two up if they're stable enough. I need like some half shelves that'll slide in there to give
Yeah.
double height or something like that.
But I've got a number of bottles, and I love Iroshizuku ink. I've got Anduriliums. I've picked up on several of those. And picked up more of them at the Atlanta show because they were right next to me. So that was real easy to kind of go over and try that one out. Because oftentimes at shows you never get, don't get time to walk around as much as you like. So I bought some there. I like those as well. And just, and a few others, including some Jacques Herbin that are some cool inks with some shimmers. I don't have a lot of shimmers, but they're interesting. I like to play with them every once in a while.
Yeah, I write with tiny nibs, so shimmer is always lost on me because it's probably not going to flow anyway. I'm a I don't really like I don't like crazy sheeners. I'm a shader. I like shading
Mm.
inks because
Yeah.
those will still show in the smaller nibs. But what do you like to write on? What are some of your paper preferences when you're using your variety of fountain pens?
Well, my notebooks that I'm carrying around, the travelers, and I'm sorry that doesn't really show up very well, but I'm a journaler and stickers and all sorts of things. A quick pass through my March was was this. So I really like how the ink flows on this paper. When I've got my large format is Nemesine.
Yeah, I like the Nemesine. The Nemesine.
Nemesine.
I've heard it pronounced both ways, but that's some great paper.
So this is Nemesine with starts with an M is Japanese, but which is different from the Nemosini or Nemosine German pen nib ink company.
Yeah. Have you tried
Um,
their, the Nimacine, the Japanese, with the craft covers? It's like they're one grade down that is sometimes easier to find, but it's for,
hmm.
like, throwaway notebooks. That's what my wife has gone to use for her work notes, where she wants good fountain pen paper, but she doesn't wanna, use the really, really nice. That's a good kinda, all-purpose, kinda like a composition book equivalent, but good fountain pen friendly paper, as well.
Yeah, I don't know where this is probably this is 80 grams per meter squared. So I'm not sure where that flows as far as uh, the the grading. But I started using these when I was still in business, and I would just, I take notes and notes, because if I wrote the notes, then I didn't have to. It's how I remember them, right? When you write things down, your mind just automatically recalls them more easily. And I think that's starting to catch on, and more people are kind of going back to the analog style, because just typing stuff doesn't commit it to memory um, like writing it does.
No, definitely. I am in that agreement 100%. If I write something down, I'm more likely to remember it. If I just type it, it's going to get lost somewhere. And it's going to be saved into the hard drive of doom. But if I write it down, I might flip a page and see it. And that'll, if nothing else, will jog the memory. Oh, I needed to go do that or
Yeah.
do this.
Of course, you
Um,
got your typewriters too, and that's a whole different way of committing it to memory, right?
Well, it's just another form of analog,
Yeah.
more tactile, less digital. It's a good way to go. But to my final of the kind of level setting questions, and this is one of my favorite ones to ask because the answers are always such a variety of items. What is your favorite stationary adjacent item? And that by that I mean a case, a
Yeah.
messenger bag, a lap desk, a book weight, something that is not pen, paper, or ink that you use all the time that you would consider crucial to your enjoyment of the stationery hobby or use.
Yeah, I love these cases from Garney and Company. They are fantastic. This is with the um, buffalo hide, and then also with the deer skin on the inside. They I have two of these, so 4 pins each. When I go to shows, these are easy to put into the bag and carry them around. They're both presents for my wife, so I've got that going for it as well. But people who have never seen the Garney just gravitate to it. They just love it. So yeah, this kind of goes
No, and that makes
every trip,
sense.
and generally every pen club meeting.
Well, yeah, and cases are one of the more common things, either be it rickshaw or leather of some variety,
Hmm.
because you want to carry your pins around safely, especially if some people, they don't like any of their pins to ever touch. I'm a little bit of you know, if it's a pin I don't want to touch something, it'll might be in a separate sleeve, but I'm a little bit more, just put them in there so I have them with me type option. But cases,
Yeah.
regardless, be it pin club or shows or throwing in a bag, you want to at least know that all the pins are together so you can get to them when you need.
Yes.
But let's transition and let's get into now. You've already alluded a little bit to kind of the past, but so you were doing other woodwork and then
Hmm.
transitioned to pins when you got the steal of a deal with the
Yeah.
lathe and pin kit combo. So, once you got the lathe, did you just dive in and trial and error, or did you do classes? Did you work with anybody, or was it just kind of you had a general understanding of how it should work? You were already doing woodwork and just let's dive in and see what we can do.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to 18 when I first started. I'm not sure there was too much on there was a few web sites to go to see somebody turn the pin. So I kind of picked up on it that way. And I was making kits, so there was a lot of support for kit making from Rockler or from Penn State. They always had a lot of resources to get to. But then I just started finding different people online that were doing kits and kind of learning from them. And that also led me to folks like Gabe out in Los Angeles, who is making these bespoke pens, right? And so I started making pens in 18, late 18. So 19, making more pins, mostly as gifts. I did some craft shows, um, where I could sell those pins, and I started moving more towards a semi-bespoke. So not a complete kit pin, but like the nib component was metal, but then you did everything else. Like you made the clipless cap and the barrel and all that. And so I started getting closer to the 3-part pen as I was learning. And so again, just more uh, studying, kind of finding out what's out there. I found Jim Hines. I found out this guy Jim Hines, who's just up in Dallas, which is it's 3.5 to 4 hours north of us, so it's not just around the corner. But found out that he was teaching a how to make a 3-part pen class at the SoCal Pen Turners gathering in Los Angeles. And it just so happened to be on my birthday. And so my wife took us both out there so I could take this class from Jim um, to make this pen. It's unique in that it's not completely symmetrical because this is the first pen I ever made. But, Jim he's quite a blessing to the community. And yeah, so I made this is on February 28th of 2020. So 2 weeks before COVID. And, and I got further hooked. And so I spent the rest of that year um, gathering some tools to make 3-part pens. I listened to the Pen Maker podcast because I didn't start listening to them when they started, but I quickly caught up, and that's quite a resource for makers because they talked about all the things you had questions about, but didn't know how to answer them.
Talk about timing. We're getting to work with Jim right before the world locked down.
Yeah.
Good notes written down, and then you have that plenty of time to practice.
Yeah. So, the rest of 20, I was, well, I still had a day job, and it was COVID, and we had to make money at that software business. So I was really busy with that and still trying to do some pins for uh, to kind of cool down from the work, right? To get away from the work. And since we weren't traveling a lot then, I was able to spend more time in the shop and order, tools and supplies and the like. And then uh, kind of in 21 is really where I started opening my business up a little bit more. And what I learned during that time was, even with the kit pins, is how do I differentiate? Because um, it's how are you going to attract someone's attention to buy your pen, right? If it looks exactly like all the rest of the pens on the market, that you may not sell them, right? So I wanted to differentiate, and one of the first things I did in 21 was I came across these novelty coins that that populate my finial, and by branding my models, my first one that I did, this is mid 21, it was my Liberty. So it's got a miniature walking Liberty there. So I started doing that, and this is a larger pen, and a lot of people like the larger pens, but I also was listening to people, and they were saying, some people were saying, well, I like a slimmer pen. And I was like, well, I'm all in for trying things out. I'll come out with there's other options. I'm going to make a slimmer pen. And so I came out with my slightly slimmer uh, Ike model. So it's got a little Eisenhower on the top. And, uh, that also, met some of that need. Just always been trying to listen to the client and address either um, niche opportunities or see if there's an actual opportunity to fill an unmet need in the market.
Does the Ike still use a number 6 nib, or did you step down to a number 5 for the smaller form factor?
So the Ike, my original Liberty was a number 6. It's now a number 8. The Ike has always been a 6, but then also kind of at that same time as I was just listening, I started going out and going to antique stores and finding old pens because I was I started hearing about this vintage thing, but I'd never really seen vintage, never been to a pen show at that time. So I started gathering pens and I was just looking at them for their sizing and everything. So in 22, at the end of 2021, start of 22, is when I designed my Mercury model, and the Mercury model does use a number 5 nib, but I designed it to have the proportions of there was a nib in it. This one to have the proportions of a pocket pen from yesteryear, and this I'm known for making slim pens. Still make the larger pens, but I'm most differentiated in the making of these pens. And so it's
No,
been a
and
really good seller.
that makes sense to want to find your niche because I know that's something I've been thinking about of being a newer, just dipping the toes into the making side. Like you said, what can you do to make something that is different? What is there a need or a perceived need that you think, oh, that could be the one thing. You're still going to make some standard pens that are similar to other makers, but
Mhm.
that's one thing I've noticed in shows. Everybody's still selling pins because a lot of it's just material and getting to talk to people, making those connections. That's a big part of it as well, is actually selling your pins, not just having them sit there, saying hi and, being approachable and good conversation,
Yeah.
but having those different niches that kind of go in. And in those regards, one pin that is really intriguing of yours is the Fude. So
Mhm.
talk about how that came to be because I think that's a perfect example of what you're talking about, a niche that, you're able to take something that exists but make it more fun, something that's more
Yeah.
practical and just adds a little bit of something to something that would be kind of boring otherwise.
Well, so I've mentioned listening to the market, listening to my customers, right? So my wife was not a customer of mine, but she's a sketcher. So she's been involved with urban sketchers globally for the past 13 or 14 years. And she always used this very ubiquitous Sailor Fude de Manin pen. But everybody else that she knows also has the same pen. They're all green. And if you have three different colors, you have three different green pens. And so she says, can you make me a can you make me a pen that this nib will fit into? And so that's what I did. So this is my Freedom model, and um, a couple of things about this. So it does not have a coin finial, okay, um, and the nib section from the Sailor Fude de Manin, you take it out of the Fude that you possibly already own and just slip it into this pen. Or I do sell these with the nib, but it's also at a price that all starving artists would also appreciate. Um, so it's become a really good seller. It's a lot of people have fun with this. So it, people that are not calligraphers, people that are not sketchers, but they just love using a Fude nib because you get all that line variation, the line thicknesses, without the need for pressure. So, a flex nib pen, and nothing wrong with flex nibs, uh, but you do have to learn how to use them, right? And you only get your thick on a downstroke or a side stroke where you're going, across. With a Fude, you can get that wide in a number of directions just by the angle of how you hold it.
No, I like that because to me, it's kind of like if in the car world, you've made a body kit for a
Mhm.
car where you can kind of retrofit the car, turn the Fiero into the Ferrari. You buy the
Yeah,
Ferrari body kit and put it on the Fiero because you've got the functional nib and section, and then you can mix and match because that makes perfect sense for an artist. If they need their black, their blue, their whatever colors they want to have in their arsenal, you want to quickly be able to look down and go, oh, I have the blue ink in this pen. I have the black ink in this. So you can,
exactly.
especially in urban sketching where it's more timely at time, you might need to be quicker at what you're drawing before it leaves or changes too much. Having that quick draw. So that's a great example. And I love that because at first I didn't, when saw them on the table, I was like, man, those are kind of different looking. And then you look at them like, oh, okay, this makes perfect sense now. It's
Yeah.
making, because it's kind of like the Pilot 912. The Pilot 912 had a body kit. It would sell well because they're just boring pins. They've got great nibs, great variety, and the most
Yeah.
boring looking black with silver trim pin that you can come across.
Yeah.
And, it's that kind of thing where you were able to, and it helps that your wife being an artist and active in the sketching community, that's an easy way to help promote what you're making too. Of Because when she goes and does an event, people are
100%.
going to go, "Hey, what's that you're using there? Oh, it's the Fude. Why is it not green? Oh,
It's the Dave Dollar Freedom Pin, of course. This is the one you need.
yeah,
Um,
that's perfect to like tie in, especially when you are doing shows where she's teaching classes or something like that.
oh, yeah.
In her class, if someone's asked the question, oh, well, you can go to Dave's table in the dealer room and you could pick one of those up for yourself. It's a perfect like
She's
self
earned
marketing.
many a commission off of those workshops
No, that's great.
for the pin she
So
sold.
you're the current Orlando Pin Show Pin Maker champion. So talk
That's
about
cor
just how that went, and I don't know if you have your belt handy there.
Of
I
course, I
know
have my
that was
belt with me,
something that was on the table at both Arkansas and Atlanta recently.
and this thing weighs 5 pounds, so it's legit. That's solid brass. They did a really good job. You can see all that. The snaps don't work, so I can't wear it except over my shoulder. Right. I probably won't go through the entire, interview like this, Derek, but I'm encouraged by the folks at the Orlando Pin Show to wear it like this on occasion and walk around the
We'll just
shows.
give a good smile real quick, and I'll use that as the thumbnail. There,
Excellent.
I'll be able to pull that out. We'll use that as the thumbnail.
Yeah, so this was the inaugural, Pin Maker Challenge, that, Joe, and Steve, I think, he really pushed for it. He's in the Orlando Pin Club. Um, and they wanted to have something that was, juried. So they had six judges that did not talk to each other. They had 5 criteria, weighted score. I think there was 8 or 9 of us that were competing, and the theme was reef relief. So the charity that the Orlando Pin Show supports is Reef Relief. So what's that going to be? Well, I started thinking, and I just kept thinking because this was introduced to us in March at the Baltimore Pin Show, I believe. So we had some time to think about it. Went to the Atlanta Pin Show, still thinking about it, still trying to figure out, well, what am I going to make for this? And I had a commission that came up where someone wanted something pretty unique. And I was like, hey, if I just make some changes to what they were looking for, I could actually make this into a pen that I can supply to the pen maker challenge. And so that's what I did. And while there's going to be a video link to the one that actually won, the design that won is this. So I call this my display dropper, and it can be with a clip or not. This is currently in my Ike model. So it has a eyedropper in the front, and then in the back, it has a chamber that's filled with mineral oil and some things that are heavy and some things that are light that move around there a bit like a fidget. So the pen that won had a couple of seashells, and it also had a um, little silver fan coral because you wouldn't want to use a real coral because this is for reef relief. So a little silver fan coral in there. And then the thing I also did differently on that pen was instead of having my Ike, I had a silver sand dollar in the top. So, um, so yeah, I won the competition. I got the belt. I took it to Dallas last year and to Baltimore and Arkansas and Atlanta. It'll be at the little craft fest. It'll be at the Florida Stationery Fest at the end of May, and I have to give it back maybe temporarily after the DC Pen Show.
Well, and I assume you're already working on what your plan is this year, so you can have the belt to tour around to the shows next year as well.
I'm
And
noodling it. Yeah, I haven't figured it out exactly, but I'm directionally, I know which way I'm going.
when you're
So
gonna have the target on you this time because you were
I
the first
know.
winner, so now you've level set, completely different idea on something that looks really cool, and definitely check out the video links we'll have in the show notes to, the links Dave sent of the actual thing. You know, getting to see the style of pen in person, it's just so unique, the way the mineral oil moves the materials around, it's great to see. So definitely be sure and check those out, but so you're gonna have that. You mentioned Little Craft Fest. So as we're recording this, this will be released the day before Little Craft Fest. So how is that having essentially a local show? That did you do Little Craft Fest last year, or will this be your
I
first time with that being the
no, I
local?
was I was at the inaugural Little Craft Fest last year. It's great not having to travel. The venue is 15 minutes from my house. Um, and I was the only pen maker on the uh, of the vendors last year. I think there's another one this year, but it's a great show. It was my first stationery show um, that that I was working at. I actually attended the Tokyo Pen Show back in 23. And that's very much a stationary show. So it's, Pen Show is very much pen centric and stationary adjacent. And stationary shows are very much stationary shows that are pen adjacent. So it's a different group. But I had a great show last year. Really looking forward to this year. I spent most of the last several weeks replenishing inventory from a great March um, show schedule, but primarily taking my freedoms, my Fude models, and um, my Mercury models with and without clips because these are great sized pens. Um, and also, I'm, I'm I have 20 nib holders that I'm bringing from my friend Rich at River City Pen Company that I'm going to have at the table. So I think we're going to have a good mix of pens and and items for the attendees.
No, and I think that's something that the whole stationary world is seeing that, like you said, pin shows are more shopping focused, buying pins where there might be some people selling paper versus the
Hmm.
stationary shows, which is papers and stickers and washi, more
Yeah,
classes, and
yeah,
then maybe a couple of people selling fountain pens. Cause a lot of people in that journaling and planning world, they're new to fountain pens if they've ever used them. They're more gel and other pins. So an interesting mixture of the Venn diagram was closing in of the planner stationary world and the pin world because both benefit from the other. We know there's people in the pin show world. They probably only use Clairefontaine paper. That's just what you use. You use the one and it
yeah,
works. And then once you realize there's a whole nother world of paper or inks or whatnot, the pen people can benefit from the stationary side, and the stationary people can benefit from wait, fountain pens, my hand doesn't hurt when I write a long time, and I can use all these colors and a Fude nib to draw and get line variation and out of the
yeah,
same pen. It's just an interesting time that I think is those stationary type fests are going to become even more popular. And I think they're a little bit easier because, like you said, you don't, it's not as much shopping focused. So having one or two makers there is a good breakdown versus a pen show where you kind of expect you want to, it's a different audience.
yeah. There were 42 or 45, depending on how you count them, pen makers at DC last year. So, quite a difference. And there'll be other pens there, of course. They'll be from some of the major, standard houses of whom you're thinking of. My goal is to attract people into the maker community for pens. Pens that have a story. That's what alluded to before, people want to buy stories. So people are buying the stories on, this display dropper pen. And they also buy the stories on materials that I have. I have one material that made from a maker, Joe Fonseca. It's called All About the Benjis. So it's the colors of $100 bill. Well, I'm playing off of my name because I'm allowed to. And so they like those stories. And sometimes some of the other interesting materials have stories all their own, especially if they're vintage material or like the handmade ebonite materials that I use in some of my pens.
No, and that's actually a question that I didn't have initially down, but I was going to ask because, and you already said you already have some custom materials being made, but do you like to try out new materials when you come across them? Or have you found kind of you like using these certain ones or these certain patterns? Do you do a lot of repeat materials, or do you do your models in different materials just to have some variety?
I like the variety. So when you come to my table, um, I have four major models of pens. So the Freedom we talked about, the Mercury, the Liberty, and the Ike. And I might have those pens in the same material. Generally, with the All About the Benji's material, I do. But you'll see uh, a lot of differentiation in the materials from different makers, from Jonathan Brooks, from Tim Crow, from Bob Dupress, also from Joe Fonseca, but also have materials from Anna Marie with Poorly Controlled and some Hobble Creek Craftsman stuff, which is really cool. I want to get some more of that. Um, but then also vintage materials. So whether that be some of the vintage lizard skin or some of the celluloid and cellulose acetates that are out there. I've been able to acquire a small amount of that, nowhere near what some of my other maker friends have in their inventory. But I like to have a lot of differentiation there on the table.
Do you consider yourself, I've heard it said of some of our fellow pen makers, aka Nick Pasquale, material collector who happens to make pens? Do you fall into that? Do you like to collect the variety of materials, or just kind of see what comes along
Yeah,
when you're looking to resupply?
it's more the latter. So
Gotcha.
I don't have the huge inventories because I do, I like to make the pens and not just hoard the materials. Um, but some of the materials are more rare than others, so you have to be a little bit more, careful about how you want to use them, especially if you're doing a pen that's going to be a spec pen, right?
Yeah.
Versus a commission pen where they know that they want the pen out of that material altogether.
No, definitely. So, in terms of commissions, if someone wants to commission a pin from you, do you have information on the website they can
I do.
submit, or how does the commission stuff work from your side?
Yeah, there's a deposit. There's a form for each one of my models on the website, and there's a deposit to put down. And then, I'll contact them and put them into the queue. I don't have a heavy commission load, so I can generally turn things at present until after this podcast in a month or 6 weeks. So,
No, and that's great because that's something that as people hear about makers they might not be familiar with. They might go, or hopefully they're reading the notes and looking at the your website and links, and like I could see the food A, something like that that's unique because I'm sure there's a lot of people who have that and they didn't realize there's another option besides a green body. They might want to
yep.
pick something like that up, and they might have a stick of material from Poorly Controlled, because that's something I've found interesting. People who are not makers but they are buying blanks
Hmm.
to wait until they find a maker to make the pin out of, which I had never thought of personally, but it seems to be a more common thing where individuals are buying blanks and then finding a maker to use that blank. So it's
Yeah.
interesting time of, how that is working out with some people, and how they, oh, I know I want a pin made from this blank. I just don't know what pin or who I want to make it yet, but eventually I'll find, the matching set of the maker and pen combo.
And my suggestion there, this is what I require whenever that happens, that they're going to be supplying the rod, is get two, right? Or if it's a Bob Dupress, which is a nice long 12-inch rod, that's fine. But the last thing I want to have happen is to have, um, I violate the first rule of pen making. Do you know what the first rule of pen making is that you don't want to violate?
I've probably violated it, but why don't you tell us what the first rule is?
The first rule of pen making you don't want to violate is that the inside diameter cannot be larger than the outside diameter. So that happens, right? Or some of the material could blow up just in a whim. So having enough material so it's like I've blown the cap apart, I can at least have enough material to make another cap.
No, that's something I've learned in just the beginning process as I've started buying blanks. I'm buying in twos and threes only. I don't want any single blanks. Or if I
Yeah.
do get a single blank, that's going to be for down the road in the bottom drawer for when, you know, I have less of a chance of having a piece of material explode or sliding the tailstock too quickly and the drill bit hits before I was ready for it to lock it down and actually start turning
It
it.
should have
Little things like
known.
that.
It should have known exactly what you wanted it to do.
The
So that's and
ironic
that's
part is, this weekend I had a blank that I had that happened, last weekend. And then sure enough, I had another stick, cut a piece, and the same blank, the same thing happened again. I was like, okay, I'm cursed. This blank just wants to have the drill bit slide too far. It happens, but it's a good learning process. So now I have a way to stop it. But so you've done how many shows this year? You did Baltimore, Arkansas, Atlanta. You have Little Craft Fest. What else is on the show schedule for you for the rest of the year at this point?
So Little Craft Fest is this weekend, so the end of April, and then the Florida Stationery Fest, which is the first Florida Stationery Fest, is being run by the same folks that do the the Florida Fountain Pen Show. So that's at the end of May. Then the next show that I'm doing is DC, so first week-ish of August. And then I'm not returning to Orlando this year for the Orlando Pen Show because we had a previously scheduled trip out of the country. So doing that. My last show of the year is Dallas. So at the end of September, which is now a 4-day show and in the big ballroom. So that's going to be interesting. So 7 shows that I'm working this year. I did attend the California Pen Show for the first time. So I checked it out. So that was good. And that's probably about the sweet spot of where I'll be, 7 to 8 shows a year.
No, and I think that sounds like a manageable number. And like we were talking about before the recording started, you're doing manual pen making. You're not at a CNC level, so it's
CNC,
a little bit
no.
more time intensive when you're making the volume to be able to have enough inventory to cover 8 shows when
Yeah.
it's all still manually done. So, you know, I think that's the important thing because even with the podcast, learning to set a limit so you're not overcommitting because then if it feels too much like work, you're not going to have as good of a time doing it.
Right, and this is my retirement career. So I'm retired, and this is what I get. I get to do art, and I get to make functional art that are pens. Yeah,
No, and
so
that's
don't do too much.
and that's the great way to do it. But as we're starting to wrap up here, I guess we're down to like the last question that I tend to ask everybody. What is next for Dave Dollar and Dave Dollar Custom Pins?
Um, well, one thing that I'd be remiss not to mention when I talk about differentiation, and it's next, and I'm doing it now. So starting 4 years ago uh, after I'd already had the Mercury out, I started incorporating roller balls into my Mercury pen. And these roller balls are the ones from Schmidt that do a really good job of using fountain pen ink cartridges and converters. So that's been very successful. Like I said, I've been doing that for the last 4 years. I'm now incorporating through my friend Logan at Little Hollow Customs. I have his adapter for the number 6 for my Ike model, as well as because I've been listening to the customers, they also said that they wanted the same thing for my Freedom model. So I have roller balls for 3 of my 4 models. Um, and then based upon the success of the um, Orlando Pin Show last year and the Pin Maker Challenge, this display dropper, I'm going to be doing more eyedropper pens and expanding on the display dropper. Right now it's in my Ike model, but I'm going to be expanding that into my Liberty model with a number 8 nib. It also means a bigger chamber, which means you can put, I don't know, bigger diamonds or gemstones or whatever else you want floating around in that mineral oil. Um, and continuing to hone that part of the craft while also um, looking at some other filling mechanisms. Well, I want to look at some other filling mechanisms for my pens as well.
No, very neat. It's great that you're able to continue, listening to the customer, what they want. And I picked up one of Logan's adapters in Atlanta because I'd
Mm-hmm.
interviewed Logan in season one. I never actually met in person until Atlanta, but you're not wrong that those adapters he's making for the number 6 are great. And, it gives a little bit of the option for if someone's not quite 100% fountain pen user, they can still benefit from the inks, the colors, and the maker pen ecosystem, and have the option to use it as a roller ball if that's what they need to use, and then they can swap it out each time they fill. But Dave, I just wanted to say I appreciate you taking some time this evening. I know you're probably busy doing the last minute prep for a little craft fest this weekend, but it was great to talk at Atlanta and Arkansas and then being able to get this scheduled. I really do appreciate it. So any last words before we sign off?
I just want to thank you, Derek, for giving me the opportunity to be on your podcast. And it was great meeting you also in Arkansas and Atlanta. And where am I going to see you next? Are you going to come to DC?
I will be at DC helping out in the Vanessa Pen Lounge.
Oh, excellent.
So I will be up there, assuming that travel happens, because I know last year some people got delayed and whatnot, but that is the next thing on the schedule for me. So I'm sure we'll run into each other there. And if not, there'll be plenty of shows next year, that I'm sure we'll cross paths again. But once again, I want to thank Dave Dollar for taking some time. If you're new, to the podcast, this is going to be available for video, and you definitely want to see this one because Dave was able to hold up a lot of different pins and examples. But you can also listen to the audio version on Spotify and Apple Podcast, and make sure you're subscribed to the RSS so you can get the new episodes as they're released. As always, appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Derek.